February the 11th, 2022 to order. At this time, I'll recognize Interim City Manager Brian Bourne to introduce these items.
All right, Mayor, thank you. Council, welcome staff, everyone in the audience. We're going to continue our budget discussions today. Like I said, I'm bringing these forward at our strategic meetings to have a dialogue between different departments and council to help us figure needs, priorities of where we want to see the budget move in the future for next fiscal year. We have three different departments tonight. First, we'll start with Pete Havanek, Communications and Tourism. Pete will be double tasking and recording and presenting.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, Manager and Attorney. I have a couple things. It should not be too overwhelming. There have been some good strides in the past couple years with the Science Center and Theater, so we are just looking to bolster those operations and hopefully get the Science Center open as soon as possible. So first thing, we'll talk about the Science Center. Currently, we have one full-time staff on board. We have budgeted for another full-time staff, and the request would be to complete our staffing to have our third full-time staff member at the Science Center. We have not hired the second person as of yet, just because we're not open, and there's no sense to have that person until we are closer to opening. This way, they're more effective. Our third person would be a customer service rep, just somebody that we could count on being there all week. We plan to supplement the staffing at the Science Center with a lot of part-time workers and a lot of volunteers, senior citizens, high school students, and members of the community that will help us round out our operating hours. So we're anticipating opening 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday, and being closed on Mondays unless it's special events. And by having the three full-time staff members, that will allow us to do it without our two members having to work 6 days a week and every weekend, if that makes sense. We're estimating a $45,000 salary with about $26,000 in benefits. Be happy to answer any questions on that piece. Again, this will allow us to maintain that 8, 9 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night daily opening and having consistency of staff in there. Running a facility like that 6 days a week with 3 full-time staff is pretty bare bones. We think we could do it with the part-time and the volunteers. And just a caveat, Science Center is funded through tourism operating funds, so it's not coming out of general fund monies. And just as a side note, hotel occupancies have been steadily increasing. Even with COVID right now, we are seeing some of the highest hotel occupancies in Monroe that we've seen in years. And we think that trend will continue in the near future.
Pete, with the opening being in flux, when do you see, you're holding off on the second
Yes, sir.
person. When do you see this third person? If we're opening in March, do you see them being hired around March, April?
No, I see this in the budget year. I'm looking for a July 1 hiring. Not to say that we won't open before that, but I'm not looking at this until July 1. Hopefully, if the stars align, if we get in the supplies we need, if we get in everything we need, we're looking March, April, hopefully opening before the end of the school year or towards the end of the school year. We have material shortages on the outside and inside, but we have seen a pickup. We are getting some deliveries next week, and our fence company that we've been waiting on for 6 months is giving us 3 weeks to start putting our fencing around it. We also have the signage, the Honoring Dr. Darden signage. That bid was awarded at the very end of November. Due to Christmas and their shortages, they are starting hopefully next week. They have 90 days to complete the signage on the 3 sides of the building. So we honestly can't really open up because they'll be doing a lot of electrical work inside as well during that time.
And the parking lot improvements should be going to bid and ready for construction in the spring.
Yeah.
We just ran out of time with the cold weather and stuff.
So what Brian is referencing, the rest of the parking area where we had the strip shopping center was demolished, so the rest of that will all be paved. And then we could work on improvements in the grass area across from the library, put some shelters and clean up that as well to hopefully coincide with the spring and with the opening.
Sounds good.
Sir?
Question for you, Pete.
Yes, ma'am.
Lost my voice. You said your hours are, you said 8 hours a day, 6, is that 2 weeks Saturday, you said?
Yeah, so at our next general services meeting, we'll be bringing the fee schedule to the general services and then to council. But tentatively, we're looking at Tuesdays through Saturday from about 9 to 5 and Sundays from 12 to 5. And then we could possibly be open after hours for private parties and stuff like that.
Just looking at, for working people, being open later.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, staff would typically probably come in at 8 and probably have to stay later to clean up and get everything ready and formulate for that. So,
But would it be open to the public for people to work like after 5?
I'm sorry, say one more time.
Would the center be open like after 5? Because I think you said, what, 9 to 5? It'll be open?
Yeah, we're looking at 9 a.m. to 5. We've explored and have that possibility of having extended hours, say possibly on a Thursday or something like that, opening till 7 or something along those lines. This is in keeping with kind of standards of other science centers and stuff like that in the area. So yeah, try and stay open at least 1 day a week, potentially later, to accommodate folks that do have to work.
And then also when the kids are out of school during the summer, I said, I guess you could open later too, correct?
We haven't differentiated summer hours yet, but that'll be something we definitely evaluate if it's worth opening later, staying later.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good points, thank you. No questions, I'll move on. All right, so we'll go into the theater. So the theater, we had our tentative kind of grand opening September 12th with the Spinners. Was a really good event. We were really slammed September, October, November. Tons of events, private events, activities. We really got a little overwhelmed and got ahead of ourselves because we have 3 full-time staff members at the theater. We have a theater director, we have a technical kind of director that does all the lighting and sound, and then we have kind of an administrative receptionist position. What we really didn't figure on is during these events, having additional staff to work the events. So these 3 people are doing their daily jobs, and then, okay, Friday night, all day Saturday, Sunday, we have additional events, and these 3 individuals are being, not forced, but stepping up to work on these days. So we tried to compensate and give them the Mondays off and stuff like that to make sure we didn't run into an HR issue with them working too many hours over. So what we're asking for are some part-time staff members that are going to help and manage events. So if we have an event on a Saturday, this part-time person will be in for 4 hours to manage the thing on Friday night, the move-in, and the event on Saturday. So we're looking at a part-time, less than 20 hours a week, so we're not looking at much in benefits, and we're looking at roughly $16,000 in costs for the year. Again, less than 20 hours a week. Honestly, sometimes it's going to be a lot less than 20. If we're not busy, if we're not working, this person would not work. Honestly, our biggest problem is going to be finding somebody that's willing to take a job like this, with uncertain hours and with weekend hours. But we're hopeful that we can find somebody that's dedicated to the theater that we can count on, much like a building attendant position, say for our country club or for any of our rec centers. Works similar that way.
Is one gonna be enough?
I think so, because we have this, and then we also have some additional funds for part-time pool hours, similar to the Aquatic Center and Parks and Rec uses. But we wanted to kind of designate a position for the house manager, and then supplement that with some of the other part-time.
So you've got the pool hours in the budget?
We do. We've got pool hours in the budget, but we want to supplement it with somebody that's dedicated to that position, that knows what's expected of them week to week. And again, it's really not a high-paying job. It's more of an attendant kind of position to make sure, hey, the bathrooms are right, you got everything you need here during an event. To go along with that, we're looking for a technical assistant. So our technical specialist that we have on board right now, he does all the lighting, all the sound, he sets it up beforehand. What we're looking at is very similar to that house manager, somebody that would come in and be there during the event. So meaning our guy would set everything up ahead of time, get everything ready, but he would not have to be there during the event, because honestly his time is much more valuable than an assistant's time being there. So the way it happened in November, our technical guy would have to be there 8 hours on a Saturday with a group doing a movie, doing a production or something like that. But he'd also have to be there during the week to help them with all their technical needs as they move in. So this position would basically be there on the weekend, on the show nights, and work the events in place of the technical specialist that we have. Slightly higher salary than the house manager, but again, less than 20 hours a week, no benefits, and something that's, again, needed to help bridge the gap of being overstaffed, overworking our current 3-member staff. And this could be a good position for a student out of Wingate that's specializing in this, almost a student out of CATA, because CATA has a fantastic theater production. And, you know, early on, we even had conversations with SPCC about them starting a kind of theater production program. So there's possibilities in there for collaboration and partnerships. Do you have any questions on that piece? Other than that, our theater is kind of ready to go. We're having some final work done, I want to say this week, on some of the lighting and sound aspects. Those of you that have been there for a production, it looks really, really good from the outside. It's really chaos and chaotic as we lead up to it. But we've had a couple performances that we've put on. We've had a couple rentals. And I would ask the manager to share his experience of seeing the bodybuilders that we had on the Christmas tree lighting day.
Must be reminded.
It was wildly successful, but it was very different. If anybody has not been to a bodybuilding competition before, I highly encourage you, because it's very eye-opening. Sorry, I didn't mean to digress there.
I nominate Lynn to go watch that and give us some
I
feedback.
appreciate that, but I think the Green Hornets would be better.
But again, we were very successful in those months we were open. We've kind of, just for general information, we've purposely slowed down a little bit for late December, early January due to COVID. We don't want to perpetuate things, but we are gearing up for a very busy February, March, April, and so on. Our inquiries for rentals are just through the roof. So we really have to balance our staff time, our facility time with what we're bringing in. So logistically, it's very difficult, and we're still trying to find our way. So.
Well, the bodybuilding event truly lived up to the goal of the theater, bringing people in the downtown and being around downtown, because it certainly filled restaurants, and
Yep.
that weekend was fully occupied by.
And I think that goes for every event we've had. I mean, the Inherit the Land event, there are people outside, and, you know, we really have to work with our downtown merchants, because once people get out of the theater, they want to get a drink, they want to get some food, and we really have to work with our merchants to stay open later and let them know, hey, we've got 500 people coming to the show that are going to get out of here at 9 o'clock at night. Capitalize on that. What can you do to make some money? So we've worked closely. The Bistro is a good example across the street because of proximity, but we've reached out and had conversations with East Frank and Courthouse Board and folks. So it's a slow progression, but I think we'll definitely get there.
Is there a way to give them the dates ahead of time?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
they can plan?
Yep. We're definitely working on that, and we're working with Matt in downtown. Matt has regular conversations because we want to motivate the restaurants. Not only restaurants, some people want some retail and stuff late at night. If you're going to have that many people coming out, you know, not everybody wants to go right home and go back to their kids after event. I know I don't.
We'd like to get to a point where there's possibly a package deal with, you know, theater and dinner or something that the merchants in the theater can work out.
And it's going to take time. You know, the merchants have to know for sure that we're going to bring these folks in before they dedicate staff and resources and time. So it's kind of another balancing act. I think the bars and the breweries, it's easier for them, but the restaurants are the ones that we
And retail.
and retail have to really get to.
It's a work in progress.
It is. Moving on. All right. Country Club, which I am still learning and has been wildly successful. I just want to share that December sales, golf round sales this year over last year is about $20,000 more, which is really good because last year's December was a good number. So I just want to compliment our guys over at the golf course for doing what they do each and every day out there. And we're real close to hiring a new general manager pro out there as well. But one of the things we need, because we have so many moving pieces out there, is an equipment mechanic. So we don't have a mechanic on site. We have more than 80 golf carts that are used all day long. We have probably about 10 to 20 pieces of machinery from mowers, blowers, and stuff like that. And a lot of times we'll either have to contract those out, contract somebody to us, load them up, try and get them to the garage. So we really believe that we need somebody on site to be able to fix little things that aren't major on our big pieces of equipment. If one of our big mowers go down, we could be in really bad shape. So we're hopeful that we could get this position passed. It is a full-time position, about $45,000 a year. And I did share with the manager in finance that this person could also have some help out in other departments throughout the city. If there was a need, there could be some use for whether it's Parks and Rec, whether it's airport, just certain mechanical abilities are highly sought after right now. And if we could handle it in-house to keep us from having to contract out and take it somewhere, it could be really beneficial and could save us in the long run.
And this was brought about through a retirement.
Correct. And we had a facilities worker that was really good mechanic that helped out, and that person retired. So we're kind of left holding the bag right now because we don't have somebody in that role that can easily step in there. Yes, sir.
So you own your carts?
I'm sorry.
You own?
We do.
your carts?
We own the carts. They'll probably be coming to you in about a year and a half for replacement. So we own them. They're Yamaha, and we own probably close to 90, between 80 and 90 golf carts.
Have you looked at leasing?
We have. I haven't looked at them, but we have looked at them in the past. And the good thing is we get a very good buyback. When we sell them back, we get a really good price back when we sell them. Because majority of our carts are given back in really good condition. So I think the last time they did it, about 4 years ago, they did a cost benefit between leasing and buying, and we'll look at that again when it's time.
We usually go through that exercise with finance every year that the carts come up, and it's just been better for us to purchase rather than lease, but we always look at it.
Yep.
And it would be a similar arrangement with this person, like Jackie Stiegel in Parks and Rec.
Correct.
Kind of help out
Yeah,
other departments one another.
there's always something that breaks.
Yeah.
And, the knowledge pool of these individuals that are able to make these repairs is dwindling, so there's not as many folks that have the ability to do what a mechanic does. So having somebody on staff would be very beneficial.
Have we looked at the shed, the building, the roof out there?
The maintenance one, or
I'm not sure which one.
the one closest by the golf course?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot, just to kind of plant the seed, there's going to be a lot of capital needs, a lot of deferred maintenance that was deferred on the facilities at the golf course. So at the pro shop, at the golf cart, at the storage shed where all the tools and everything are. We put a lot of money into making the golf course itself fantastic, beautiful, very playable. I think in the next coming years, we're going to have to look at making our structures up to par with our golf course. So there's that facility. There's also the facility that's along the driving range. We need to figure out what we want to do with that along 74. And I think I've said this before to some of you. My goal would try to get a hotel to invest either on 74 as part of the golf course or on 601 as part of the golf course. Long term, I think that could be very beneficial partnership to the city. But yes, ma'am, we do need to address some of the facility needs at the golf course. We think we could get by one more year with what we have, but we're going to have to make probably some pretty expensive decisions over the next 2 to 3 years on some of the facilities out there.
And irrigation is one of the...
Irrigation is a big issue, but we've been socking away a little money each year for that, so we should be in good shape with that. That's a good point. The city did a lot of the irrigation, especially on the back nine, way back in the day, and a lot of that stuff is reaching its life expectancy.
We have replaced the pump.
Yeah, we've replaced a lot. Even the last 2 months, we've had to make a lot of replacements with some of the irrigation going on over at the golf course. But it is in fantastic shape. It's gets accolades from players and visitors, so it is a true asset to the city.
I don't play, but it's it's very well maintained, very well done.
And you've got a very one thing I've learned in the 2 months since I've overseen it, you have a very dedicated staff out there. Your groundskeepers and your folks out there, they're second to none, and they love that course, and they figure out how to get it done. And that's the kind of employees you want out there. So.
Better hope one of them's got a buddy that wants to be a mechanic.
We're working on it. We're working on it. And basically, that's all I have. There are some CIP replacement parts at the golf course for some mowers and stuff like that, but they're built into our capital plan. So if nobody has any other questions, I'll be happy to answer anything or nothing or whatever you all need. I won't get out while we're getting good.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you all.
And next, we've got Lisa Strickland, Finance Director.
Thank you for putting that in the shared folder.
Somebody else did that.
Oh, I'm glad somebody did.
Let's see, it's fire.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Lisa Strickland, Finance Director. And we have a couple of needs in the Finance Department. Pretty often we have none, but we actually do have a few this time. We don't have any kind of deferred maintenance needs, but we do have one big capital improvement need. This is the construction of a new 6-bay fleet maintenance facility. The current facility is small. It's got 3 bays. It's just reached its functional capacity. There's no room for growth, and there's not adequate parking or storage space for the material that we use for the regular preventative maintenance. Sometimes I've gone down there and it's sitting on the floor, and they just don't have anywhere to put anything. Our fleet is ever increasing, and their activity, is as well. I've gotten pricing from a company that does pre-engineered metal buildings. The biggest part of that $1.5 million need is the building itself. The quote that I got was for a turnkey, all the construction, about $875,000. It's 60 by 100, 6-bay. It's also got 1,500 square feet of office, and we feel that this would meet our needs for many years to come. We do need to get some property to put this on. The cost of purchasing property is not included in that price. However, paving a parking area and getting the necessary stormwater permits, grading, fencing, relocation of our current lifts, because we'll have to have those professionally moved, and installing the new tire racks is included in that $1.5 million. Recurring annual cost for a building that size, I got some average costs of other buildings that we looked at, their utility costs throughout the city, and it averaged around $5,500. Of course, that's just an estimate. Any questions?
Looking at any property in particular?
Not yet. There's some ideas that we've batted around, but nothing concrete yet.
Councilmember Thompson, we also find it's good to not specify property in case someone is watching and thinking, wait, I have this piece of property that the city happens to be interested in.
We may have some of
Price
that.
goes up automatically.
Didn't believe it.
I'm gonna have to prove ignorant. Where is the current facility?
It's at the operations center on Walkup,
Yeah.
where the water
Nothing out there,
resources is.
in that site at all where something could be done or moved or put or?
Not really. It's pretty much landlocked. It's right there next to the fuel pumps.
Yeah.
And yeah, where it is on the side there, it's up against kind of that side of the property. And then going backward, we park a lot of vehicles in the parking area behind it. But even there, they're all just stacked in there. We end up with the wrecked ones, and some of those we can park on the other side of the facility till they accumulate, and then we sell them. But yeah, just the ones that we're trying to fix or that are broke down, it'd be nice to have more parking.
Right.
So that we're not constantly juggling them and trying to figure out how to get them in the different bays to be worked on. And the other request that Finance has is for a grant administrator. We've looked at this over the years numerous times. It's come up in different budget requests. There's so many grant opportunities out there right now, and we don't have a grant writer. We don't have somebody that is just dedicated to doing that. Right now, all the grants are written in the departments. So you have a police officer that's making, the grant applications for, their personnel grants, their capital equipment grants. You have fire, applying for the SAFER grant, and it takes them away from their primary job responsibility. Plus, they're not skilled like a grant person, a grant administrator would be. There's certain buzzwords and certain phrases that, the granting organizations are going to look for when we make that application. And, our folks can't know all of that. They're not familiar. They don't play in that arena on a regular basis. So, we feel like this position could potentially pay for itself. There's a lot of opportunities that we've just overlooked because we don't have anybody to write the applications. And then, too, once you get awarded the grant, there has to be somebody to keep up with it. Finance has tried a number of ways to keep up with the grants. We're doing better with it. We have Hannah is working, and her focus has been assigned, to do the grant reporting and keeping up with that. But it's still, difficult because the departments have such a heavy piece of it. She partners with them. She's doing the same thing that Ashley and I were doing when we were managing it, and the departments are just struggling to get the time to do their part of it. She's sending them more emails, but, they're still stuck in the same boat where they were, a few years ago. They're pushed and they can't get to it. We don't want to make the grant reports late. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize our standing. So we try to stay on top of this, but it'd be nice to have somebody just dedicated to do that and only that. The ARPA is going to probably not fall under this position. That'll be separate, but this position, can look at more new opportunities and pull some of that responsibility, from the department. We anticipate the cost for salary and benefits combined at $78,451, and of course we'd have to have some office furniture and a computer for them to work at. We have what we think could be adequate space back there near my office where we could put this person. So the space needs for it shouldn't be a big problem. There's already computer access and everything in that space. Any other questions?
So the ARPA would not fall under here. I thought when we discussed the ARPA grant funding earlier, when we was talking about needing a grant writer before that.
And there's a position that we requested during that presentation, and the budget amendment to cover that position is on tonight's consent agenda. And we're hoping to hire that person within the next month or two, because our first reporting cycle for our ARPA will be at the end of March. And technically, we haven't started all that we need to be able to meet that requirement. So we hope to have somebody on staff within the next month to be able to really just focus on that. And then we'll be able to use some of that ARPA funding, of course, to cover, the time that they spend working on that grant in particular. But we do have other things that we want that position to focus on. With all of these, different the point of sale systems, POS systems, like the golf course has one, the aquatic center has one. We're bringing them. Yeah, we're bringing them on the line at the Science Center and at the theater. There's just a lot of gaps that we're not filling right now, so we're hoping to put some focus into that and make sure that everything is where it needs to be in those areas. And we just don't have the staff to accomplish that right now. So that position that we add on tonight's agenda, if council approves it, will be focused in those areas. Any questions? And that's all I have for finance.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Next up, Chief Fowler, Fire Department.
This one's thicker.
I'm sorry.
I said it's thicker.
Nice. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, Mr. Manager, and city staff. Certainly Honored to stand here today and talk to you about some of our budget needs for the coming year. We do have substantial needs, as you'll see as we go through this, and I'd just like to talk through those and share with you our recommendations so that we can best serve our citizens. The majority of these needs are focused around Fire Station 6. And I know many of you are familiar with our Fire Station 6 and the needs there. I would like to just review that for just a minute for the benefit of our new council members, and then just a refresher for everyone. We have identified what we refer to as a service gap in the city. A service gap meaning that it's an area that we're not able to provide the level of service that we need to provide as a city and that we're providing in other parts of the city. So we've identified that. First, we identified it internally, primarily through our response times. And those response times are really just because of the geographic location of this area versus the geographic location of our current fire stations. We just simply can't get to that area as quickly when we have an emergency call there. We also identified this through our last accreditation site visit. That was one of the things that was identified by the team that came and did our accreditation review. Their recommendation was that we do something to fix that, to improve that service gap. Also, in our last ISO survey, and ISO, that's the Insurance Services Office, they're the ones that set our fire insurance rating for the city. That was also one of the deficiencies in that ISO grading, was that area of the city and the distribution of our fire resources there. We also are just completing a station location study, and that was by an independent consulting group, and they have also identified that area as needing a station. So the area we're talking about is the northwest quadrant of the city, up in that Secret Shortcut, Rocky River Road area. The real service gap need is really north and west of that, north and west of the expressway, up in the Glendalough community. The Glendalough development, that's up in that Unionville Indian Trail Road, Popland Road area on up. And there are several other developments that are subdivisions that are currently underway, being built, more that have been approved. That's in that area that we just simply cannot get to as quickly as we need to when they have an emergency. Really, if you'll think about going up Highway 74 towards Matthews, when you're going up 74, from the area of Fowler-Sucrus Road on west, everything to the right of 74 there is the area that this new fire station would serve. So it's not just that Glendalough area that this station would serve, it's everything in that quadrant, again, north of 74 and west of Fowler-Sucrus Road. So we've known about this need and been planning for it for some time. Our initial thought was that we would put a temporary facility there, something like a modular home, something much like we did years ago up at Fire Station 4. Now, back in the fall, the council, upon the manager's recommendation, appropriated $5 million to move ahead with that permanent fire station, which was, and we certainly appreciate that and think that was the right move to make, so that we can move ahead with that permanent fire station. The challenge is, the reality, we're looking at best 2 to 2.5 years before we can design that station, put it out for bid, have it built, and be able to serve our citizens through that station. So we're looking really hard at options of doing something to fill that gap, some more of a true temporary type facility. We have been, Chief Collins has been doing a lot of research with some companies that do provide those temporary facilities. So that's a possibility. We may be able to, ideally, if we could rent a house somewhere in that area to basically to rent that for the time until we get the fire station built. So those are options that we're looking at. But to do that, there are some needs that we have, and I'm going to talk about those here this afternoon. We do have two sites that if we do go a true temporary facility concept, we do have some property on Secret Shortcut that the city owns that could be a potential for that site, which is also a potential for the permanent station. The city also owns some property up on Union Indian Trail Road where the natural gas substation is there, that we could also put a temporary facility there. So I would like to just talk through our needs in moving forward with Station 6. First would be the fire engine, the fire truck itself for that station. So a couple of reasons that we're recommending that we go ahead with that in this year's budget. As we've talked about this temporary station concept in the past, we've talked about using one of our reserve apparatus. We currently have 2 reserve engines and 1 reserve quint, which is a ladder that we keep just to have for use when a fire engine is out of service for whatever reason. And our initial thought was we'd use one of those reserves for a number of years. The reality is 2 things we need to think about there. Those reserve units, one of them is a 2004 model, one's a 2006 model, and both have been in reserve status, one for 6 years, one for 3 years. So they were taken out of frontline service, one 6 years ago, one 3 years ago. So our dependability for that truck, putting it back in a frontline service is a concern. The other thing is the build time with the current supply chain issues that we're seeing everywhere. We're seeing build times in the 18-month time frame. That's from the time that we would sign the contract. So whenever that truck's approved, by the time we go through the design and the bid, put it out for bid, sign the contract, we may be looking at as much as 1.5 years or 2 years before we actually take delivery of that truck. So for that reason, we are recommending to move ahead with that fire engine in this budget. If that, the cost, as you see there, is $825,000, that's for the truck and all the equipment to outfit it with. If we do, if that truck is approved, it would be financed in discussion with the manager and the finance director that item would be financed, which is what we typically do for fire apparatus. Are there any questions regarding that as we move on? So next, and really the big need, the big hurdle in putting a new fire station in service is the staffing, is the people to staff that station with. And one thing to think about when we're staffing a fire station, our goal is to have a 4-person assigned company. And that four persons are what we call a fire company. And that consists of the company officer, the engineer, who is the person that's primarily responsible for driving and operate the truck, and the 2 firefighters. Now don't get me wrong, they all fight fire when they get to a fire, but those are their primary job roles. So that nationally recognized standard is a minimum of 4 people for those companies. To do that with staffing that station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it takes 3 shifts to do that. So you've got 3 shifts of 4 firefighters for a total of 12 additional firefighters. We're very fortunate that we do have 3 of those positions approved in this current year budget, and we are actually just in the process now. We actually just went through a promotional process. The manager just signed off on some promotions, and we're actually hiring those 3 positions at the end of February to fill those 3 positions that are approved in this year's budget. So with the 3 that we have in this year's budget, that leaves a total of 9. And so that's what we've got in the request for this coming year. Of those 9, 3 of them are the engineers. So it would be 3 engineers, and that's the slide that we see on the screen there now. We are recommending a January start date. And for those 3 positions, it would be, you see the cost for this coming year would be the $117,000 plus the equipment there. Now, we are recommending, and in fact, it's on your agenda for tonight's meeting, that we apply for a SAFER, it's referred to as a SAFER grant. That's a federal, and it's Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. It's the acronym SAFER. We are recommending to apply for that grant for 9 positions. That is a 3-year grant, and if awarded, that pays all salary and benefits for that 3 years. So really the only cost we would have if we get that grant would be the equipment cost and some overtime cost. So hopefully we will get that grant, and I will say that's a very competitive process, but we always try. We have been successful in the past. We got one back in 2006 for 12 firefighters when we were building our companies up to that 4-person level. I know the ones of you that were on council then remember us doing that. And then we got one about 5 years ago. They had 3 positions that we had lost back during the 2010, 2011, somewhere in that time frame. So that's the 3 engineers for Station 6. This next slide, it would be the 6 firefighters. And again, that's a total of 6. That equals to 2 firefighters per shift, 2 firefighters per company. So, you think about that, the 3 that we've got approved in this year's budget, the 3 engineers, the 6 firefighters will give us that total of 12 in moving forward to staff that fire station. And again, with the SAFER grant, we are applying for these positions in the SAFER grant as well, assuming council approves that on your agenda this evening. Are there any questions regarding any of the staffing for Station 6 or any of the what I've spoke about so far? So moving on to the next slide. This Station 6 has really kind of dominated our discussion over the past few years because it is a big need, and it's a big budget challenge. I totally understand that. However, our other needs are continuing to build within the department. So that's what we'll see in these remaining slides. This first one is 3 positions. Again, it will be 1 position per shift. Again, anytime we add a position in providing a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage, it takes 3 people to do that. So this will be 3 what we would call battalion captains. This is a position that we do not have now. We have a battalion chief who's over that entire shift, a shift of 25 people. It's 6 4-person companies plus that battalion chief, so 25 people on each shift. And that battalion chief is the supervisor the on-duty supervisor 24 hours a day. This battalion captain would be basically the next level of command on that ship. You know, now it's just that battalion chief who's over all 6 of those companies, all, well, 24 that he's responsible for. And you know, as busy as we are with the emergency incidents that we have, oftentimes that battalion chief is tied up, you know, on another incident, and then a second emergency call comes in. So this gives one a second in command on that ship. The other thing, and really by far the most important aspect of this position, is that would be an on-duty safety officer. You know, one of the things that we see, unfortunately, all too often in incidents around the country when a firefighter's injured is, you know, whether or not they had that on-duty or that on-scene safety officer designated. This will give us that ability to have an on-duty safety officer 24 hours a day assigned on that ship, and that would be their primary responsibility. This is a position that we have asked for in the past, and it's quite honestly one that I feel is very important, very, very critical to the safety of our firefighters and really to our ability to provide service to the citizens. We have seen some other departments that have implemented this position, and it has worked very, very, very well with them. So again, this is something that we feel like is a great need, and something that we would ask for your consideration on. So the next two are moving away from the emergency operations and into the Fire Marshal's division. Again, I mentioned earlier, we provide a lot of different services, and one of those is, when you get into the non-emergency services, is through our Fire Marshal's division, through our administration of the State Fire Code, fire investigations, public education, those type of things. We currently have 4 positions in the Fire Marshal's division. What we're asking here is to add, and this will be one person, one position, because again, this is a Monday through Friday, 8-hour-a-day position, so it will be one position, and that would be to establish a deputy fire marshal. That would do 2 things, well, really more than 2, a number of things. It would be someone that again is that second in charge in that fire marshal's division. So in the absence of the fire marshal, we've got a clear chain of command, chain of authority there. It would be someone to help with the workload in that division. You know, with all the increase in building that we've seen recently, and I know we've seen it throughout the city and through permitting and other departments, we're feeling that impact as well, that workload impact. And quite honestly, we're behind. And I'm just going to be honest, we're very much behind with what we refer to as our maintenance fire code inspections. You know, the one thing that's a little different from us, when we do a new building, when a new building's built and we do the plan reviews and that new building construction inspection, then we also, for the life of that building, through the state fire code, have to go back and do routine follow-up fire code inspections. And those are either done on an annual basis, either once a year, once every 2 years, or once every 3 years, referred to as a level 1, 2, and 3 inspection. And right now, we are about 750 inspections behind. Now, there's 2 reasons for that. One is, those are those maintenance inspections. Now, it's not, we are doing everything we can to stay up with plan reviews so that we're not holding up new construction. We're doing everything we can to stay up with our new construction inspections so that we're not holding anything up there. But these are those businesses that are due for an inspection, and we just simply haven't been able to get to it. There's two reasons for that. One is COVID, just because of the COVID situation during 2020 and much of 2021. We were not doing inspections to the level that we had been because we were just not going out into those businesses just because of the exposure, both the exposure to our employees and the exposure that we would create going in those. That plus just the workload itself, the increase in the workload is what has put us this far behind. So again, we're doing everything we can to catch that up. We do have on-shift inspectors. We have those captains I mentioned earlier that we have on shift. We've got 6 companies. Although those captains, we require them to be state certified fire inspectors. They go out and do inspections while they're on shift. They do the ones that are the less detailed, what we call the level 1 inspections. We do depend on our fire marshal's office to do the industries and manufacturings and those type of things. The other benefit of this position, when it does help us with succession planning, we are anticipating a retirement coming up in that division within the next few months. And quite honestly, when that retirement happens, it's going to be that much more of an impact on us in being able to continue to work through that. The other additional benefit, this will allow we do have in the Fire Marshal's Division, we have a fire and life safety coordinator that does a lot with our recruitment and retention. And adding this position would allow that person to focus more time on our recruitment and retention with more focus on recruiting a more diverse workforce. I know that's something that we're always trying to do, so that would be an added benefit, that it would allow that other person in the Fire Marshal's Division to focus more time on that diversity recruitment for us. The last thing I have, and I know our time's getting short, is really very much related to what I just spoke about, and that would be a part-time plans reviewer. Our fire marshal actually spends about 90% of his time doing permits and plan reviews. Of course, plan reviews are extremely important because as a project comes in, those developers, contractors submit the plans, we review them to make sure they meet the fire code, because it's a lot easier to make those necessary changes on paper than it is after that building is built. So plan reviews are currently certainly important. This will be a part-time position, less than 20 hours a week, and a person focused primarily on doing plan reviews and permits to help us stay up with that workload, and would also free up the fire marshal to do some of the other duties and responsibilities that they have. Are there any questions about, I know that's a lot, and I've ran through it pretty quickly, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
I just have a comment. I do want to reiterate that when the city annexes certain neighborhoods like we've done up in the Station 6 area, we do have a responsibility to provide the services to those citizens just like we would any other citizens. They become our responsibility. And clearly, we've identified, and we've looked at this. I mean, this is nothing new, but we have identified a service gap in that area. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that a service gap means that there are times that we're not able to get a fire truck on the scene with what we deem as a city as our standard response time. Now that matters if someone's house is on fire. That matters if it's a cardiac arrest. That matters if it's an urgent medical call. And so I do feel like we need to really take a look at funding the positions for Fire Station 6. I'm proud of the work that's been done so far to secure those grants. I know that we were able to get a grant for 3 captain positions that could ultimately go to Fire Station 6, but that, you can't run a fire station with one person. We have to be able to staff that fire station. And ultimately, the growth has exploded in that area. Anybody that takes a ride out to Fowler Seacrest or Seacrest Shortcut lately can see hundreds of houses that are being added, that have been approved. But then as we go even further out, as you mentioned, to those areas that we took on as a city, we've got to get a better response time out there to those citizens, because they certainly deserve that level of service that we provide to all other aspects of the city. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So again, I know this is I know it's a big ask. We're a large department. We provide a lot of different services. We provide those 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it takes a lot of resources to do that. So regardless of when it happens or where it happens in the city, we want to be prepared to respond to and handle those emergencies appropriately. So with that, if there are no other questions, we certainly appreciate any consideration that the manager and the council can give to these requests. And again, any follow-up you'd like to have, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief. Appreciate it. And appreciate Lisa and Pete also with your presentations. Right now, it's a little after 5:30, so I'll recess this meeting. We'll reconvene at 6 p.m.